Good morning, boys and girls. Today we're going to begin talking about representing and comparing decimal values. So you should have this paper in front of you. Join with me in writing the two values that we're going to be comparing first. Right here in this value box, we're going to go ahead and write 1 3/10. Ooh, looks like my pen is bleeding some ink. 1 3/10. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And over here in this area, we're going to be writing the value 1 4/10. 1 4/10. So whenever we're comparing values, I like to think about it as like we're having a race, like 1 3/10 versus 1 4/10. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of clear up my camera. I think that's a little bit clearer image. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So the first place that we want to start this morning, just ignore this little piece right here. First place we want to start this morning is our model. So we want to model what 1 3/10 looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my marker or some kind of shading utensil, and when I see the value 1 in front of the decimal, that means I have one hole. So I'm going to outline my whole box, and then I'm going to quickly shade the whole box. And you can shade yours right now too, so that it matches mine. Okay. When I see 3/10, I think to myself, well, this next model that I'm looking at is divided evenly into 10 equal pieces. When I count them, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 equal pieces, and I need 3 of those. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my same shading utensil, and I'm going to shade in 3/10. So we have 1/10, another 10th, and a third 10th. In fact, I think right now I'm going to stop for just a minute and I'm going to label this. So this is representing my whole, and this here would be my tenth. So I have 1/10, 1/10, 1/10. It's a little bit clearer. I'm not sure what's going on with my regular black pens this morning. Okay. So now that I've got 1 3/10 modeled, it's 1 4/10 turn. So again, I go over in front of my decimal value and I see that 1, which means that I have one whole piece shaded. So I'm going to take my writing utensil. It happens to be a different color. You can use the same one, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to quickly shade in one hole. And I'm inviting you to shade in quickly so this doesn't take the entire math time. Okay. Excuse me. And then behind that I have 4/10. So over here, where I see that I have another model that's divided into 10 equal pieces, I'm going to quickly highlight 4 of those 10ths. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to stop again and just label. So we have one hole. We have one hole, and then we have 1/10, 1/10, 1/10, 1/10, giving us the 4/10. So as I look at the two models, I can see that 4/10 is more than 1 3/10. So that's just one way that we can compare them, by using picture models. Another way that we could compare them is thinking about our place value. And place value is more efficient. It's a little easier, especially when we don't have the models that are provided for us. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to actually label this place value chart. And I'm actually going to put the ones in this box. Then I'm going to put a decimal right here on this line. And then we have our tenths place. I'm not going to worry about my hundredths or my thousandths because both of my models are only cut into 10 equal pieces, which means that I'm only going to be worried about the tenths place. Below that, I'm going to first write the number 1 and 3/10. And then I'm going to write 1 and 4/10. And when I compare numbers, I start at the beginning of the number. I start with my ones place, and they both happen to have a 1, so there's really nothing there to compare because they're the same value. The decimals are lined up, but it's the tenths place where we see a change. And I can see clearly that 4/10 is bigger than 3/10. So another way to compare numbers involving decimals would be to line up the place value. And finally, we could just think about it on a number line. If I look here at this number line that's been provided for me, I see that I have this blank number line. So one way to look at this is just to think about starting with my value of 1, since both numbers have a 1 in the ones place, and going to my very next whole number, which would be 2. Thinking about what comes between the numbers 1 and 2, and thinking about my models, I know that I have both models cut into 10 equal pieces. So I'm going to cut this into 10 equal pieces. And thinking about what is in the middle of 10 would be the number 5. So I'm going to start by cutting it in half, and I'm going to call this 1 and 5/10. Please do that with me. Now what I need is I need some tenths in front of 1 and 5/10, and I need some tenths behind it. So in front of it, I need 4 marks. So I need 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10. Then we have our 1 and 5/10. Behind that, I have 1 and 6/10, 1 and 7/10, 1 and 8/10, 1 and 9/10, and then the very next tenth would be 2 wholes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to compare the values looking at my number line. When I think about 1 and 3/10, if I'm starting at 1 and I'm just kind of moving along, I'm going to stop right here. That value stops from there, from 1 to 1 and 3/10. If I think about 4/10, I'm going to think about that value underneath the number line, like right here, starting at 1, moving all the way down until I get to 1 and 4/10. And it is more on the number line as well. So another way to compare these would be using our number line, thinking about which one is the greater. So going back to the beginning, thinking about a race, thinking about 1 and 3/10 versus 1 and 4/10, and writing that value, we're going to use our signs, our greater than and less than signs. So we're going to start with greater than and less than. And these are actually called inequality signs. In fact, we're going to write that at the top of our paper. An inequality sign looks like the word equal is inside, but it is not. because these values are not equal. So when we have that prefix in, that means not, then you see the word equal. So if we're thinking about using our vocabulary and what means not equal, we're talking about two values that are not equal to each other. So our inequality signs are our greater than and our less than signs. So if I go down here and I put in my values, I have 1 and 4/10 is greater than 1 and 3/10, because that larger end is always going to face our larger number. And then I can flip that around and say 1 and 3/10 is less than the smaller piece facing the smaller number, 1 and 4/10. So we just talked about 3 ways to compare numbers: using models, using place value, and using our number line. Go ahead and catch up with me if you haven't on the video, and then I'll see you for models 3 and 4 in just a minute.